So we are talking today about Mackin Via, about Mackin, and about shared collections. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen today and talk to you a little bit about Mackin and Mackin Via and our shared digital collections. I'm going to move our shining faces here. So just to let you know a little bit about me, I'm Sarah Mitchell. I was a school librarian here in Omaha for many years, and I joined the Mackin team about 3 years ago. And I joined the Mackin team primarily because I had been so impressed. They were my go-to vendor for all of my print and my digital. I loved working with them because their customer service was amazing. This is my bright and shining family. Just a year ago, my daughter got married. I am a Husker through and through, I have to say. You can always find me on Twitter at Sarah Mitchell, S-Mitchell3. And you can always reach me by email at sarah.mitchell@mackin.com. So who's Mackin? That's a question I asked the first time a Mackin representative walked through my library doors. He might have started shaving about the week before he came. Mackin's been around for over 34 years, and we provide library and classroom materials in a pre-K-12 environment. We work with over 18,000 different publishers. So if we can acquire it and the publisher allows us to distribute it, we can get it for you. So we have access to over 3 million print, over 2 million ebooks, databases, audiobooks, all kinds of digital resources as well. In addition to Mackin Via, our digital content management system, and our custom collection analysis services, which that team is just my rock stars. I love that group. So we are known for our unparalleled customer service. Mackin came alongside me as a librarian, and just especially in rural settings, I was one of 10 elementary librarians, but I tell you what, I needed their resources, I needed their expertise, and Mackin is there for you. So what's Mackin Via? Mackin Via is our digital content management system. It is our ebook platform, but I like to say it's kind of like an ebook e-reader on steroids. It gives you single sign-on access to any of your school's digital resources. As we're talking today, I want you to remember that anything with a URL can live in Mackin Via and be accessed by your students with a single sign-on at school or at home. So a couple of really important things to keep in mind, keep this in the back of your mind this morning about Mackin Via. There are never any hosting fees. There is no annual subscription fee. There's no yearly annual commitment. We can work with your IT department and provide a single sign-on so that students are logging into Mackin Via the same way they log into any of your digital resources at school. We offer a free integration with any of your learning management systems like Clever, Google Classroom, Canvas. We want to make it as easy for your staff and students to access resources as possible. And once again, we work with over 18,000 publishers, 2 million ebooks and audiobooks are available. Important to know, any perpetual titles you purchase never go away. Anything you purchase with Mackin, as long as it's a perpetual title, and we'll talk about those licensing strategies in a little bit, but those titles never go away. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a tour of Mackin Via and what it looks like. So I can log into Mackin Via either from a web browser or from an app that's free for any mobile device. So there's an free app for everything. So the first time your students log in, they're going to log in with your school library or your school name. And today I'm going to log into my Mackin Demo School. And let's see, what's my login this week? They change it on me every week. They don't know how old I am. So when students log in, we can modify this login 8 ways to Sunday. I really like the home screen because I can modify it and highlight different titles, different themes that my building is working on. I like the home screen. I also have districts that have their students log into all resources. But on the home screen, we have available for you the free side of Dogo News. These are age-appropriate, educationally relevant news articles that students can engage with, great for current events. So when students do go to all resources, you'll see that there are icons identifying each one of your different kinds of resources. So you can see there are ebooks, audiobooks, videos. You'll also find we also have read-alongs available, and that icon looks like an ebook icon with a play button next to it. So when a student is looking for a specific ebook, they can also utilize an advanced search. They can search by author, any subjects they're interested in, various genres, or if they are interested in a certain series. We can also add in a search for interest and grade level, Lexile, if your district uses Fountas and Pinnell or AR, any of these different tools we can add in additionally. I like using more as an instructor when your teachers are looking for specific kinds of ebooks, if they're specifically looking for a multi-user, if they're specifically looking for read-alongs or content that's reflowable, and we can talk about that in a moment. But more can be a very useful search, especially for your teaching partners. So let's say I'm going to do a search on, maybe I'm doing some research on Ebola. So Mac and VIA allows you to do a deep dive into all of your ebooks. So the titles that are coming up in my demo account, I want you to keep in mind too, this demo account has thousands of titles. It's our demo account, and we'll talk about how we can grow your school's ebook content here in a moment. But when I do this deep dive, I'm seeing titles that I would expect to have information on Ebola, but I may not have considered a variety of different titles that might have information about Ebola. So if I come here to the super plague, it's going to tell me every page that my search term is located on. And so within here, oh, fun. It's a graphic. I haven't opened this one before. So within here, I'm going to get my toolbar back. My old eyes tell me I need it just a little bit larger. So within here, when I come into this title, if I see any search terms, any words that I'm not quite familiar with, I can highlight that word. I can have it defined for me and even read out loud to me.
Exhaustion.
Now, my oldest is hearing impaired, and that tool would have been great for him when he was in school, because he would oftentimes see a word he didn't know, and he would assign a pronunciation to it that may or may not have been correct. And then when he heard it in normal conversation, he wouldn't connect those two. So if you have students that are working on academic vocabulary, this is a great way for them to increase that. I can also, when I'm doing any kind of interaction with a title, I can highlight, I can take notes. So think about how you want students interacting with any kind of book. Maybe they're doing research and they're taking notes on an information quest that they're on. Maybe they're in an ELA classroom and they're working on specific reading strategies, or they're the teacher, the ELA instructor is wanting them to look for certain themes or strategies. They're working on plot or character. So when they go into those various titles, They can do that highlighting. They can take notes. That annotation and note taking is what brings comprehension up in an ebook to the same kinds of levels of comprehension that they would have in print. So once I've taken those notes, I come here to my notebook, and any notes that I've taken are saved in my backpack, in my notebook, until I delete them or I'm no longer part of the system. So this note that I've taken, I can now export this note to my Google Drive, my OneDrive. I can print it. So if I'm a Google team, if I have Google in my district, I can save this to my drive and I can share it with my teacher. When I was in the elementary library, we had students as young as 2nd grade that we would be highlighting nonfiction text features. 3rd grade was finding main idea, and we would have students highlight that. They would save it to their Google Drive and share it with their teacher. Now, granted, it was 2nd and 3rd grade spelling, but they were still completely able to do that. Within McInVIA, we can also bring in any subscription databases. If you subscribe to any databases other than what the Kansas State Library provides, we will migrate those into your McInVIA at no charge. We can also bring in the Kansas State Library resources. It's easy as it's seriously. Last time I did it, I think it was a total of 4 clicks because I needed to find the image I was looking for. Within our databases, if that database allows itself to be scraped, we can do that same deep dive within our databases. So I can come here, I have 346 articles that talk about my search term. So it's a great way for students to robustly use the databases that you've invested in. We oftentimes find that when we have students that can easily access the databases, that database use goes up. So keep in mind, anytime we pull those databases in, students log into McInVIA and they are automatically logged into all of your digital resources. If your buildings have any kind of subscriptions to something like IXL Math or A to Z reading or any digital textbooks, we can absolutely pull the link in to that. Students may need to re-authenticate. I have a lot of districts that use Epic as a tool to provide digital reading resources for their students. We can pull that in. Your Tumblebook subscriptions in Seaman, we will migrate that in. In fact, it's already there. You have it there. So students at home, all they do is log into McInVIA and they're automatically logged into Tumblebooks. We can also categorize. We have categories that genreifies your ebook collection. You can also create groups. Groups was a tool that I used to create that collaborative bridge between the library and the classroom. Groups is completely up to you. You can choose to use it or not. I found it really useful. So here's a great example, this NASA group. You can include instructions, and you can either have a classroom teacher create those instructions, they can send them to you and you can add them. We like it when a building librarian is the full administrator for McInVIA. Full administrators are the only people that can add resources to McInVIA. But you can provide group permissions to classroom teachers so that they can take resources that you've added, curate those into a group, add instructions, or create an assignment. So within here, as you can see, we've created instructions. We've included instructions. This is a differentiated group of resources for students to do their research. You can pull in outside links. So as you curate OERs for teachers to use, or we can pull in a YouTube video. This saved my bacon. YouTube videos open up in the McInVIA viewer and not YouTube. Any outside resources that you pull in, links or videos, the citation comes along with it, so our students can be good users of information. I found at all grade levels, regardless of age, providing examples of academic quality web resources taught my students or brought them along the way of developing good web evaluation skills because we did it by example. You can see that I also pulled in a database for students to use in this, so it just allowed me to pull in differentiated resources on a given topic. Now, maybe we need to pull in titles for a book club or for different inquiry units. Maybe I just want to pull in a group of read-alongs, or in, I had a kindergarten group. Of course, kindergartners don't read yet, so we pulled in a lot of online read-alongs. We had some read-alongs that we purchased, things like Storytime Online, different kinds of, what else did we have in there? Starfall. And we just took a photograph of the two kindergarten teachers and used that as our image, as our tile. And students knew during their reading center to take their iPad, and they clicked on that group and they put on their headphones and they knew what to do. So let's talk about what it would look like as a shared collection. Before I stop this, do we have any questions yet about Mac and VIA, how students log in, or how we can use resources in Mac and VIA? Are there any questions yet? Okay, well then I'm going to step on to our next part. So let's talk about a Kansas shared collection. What can this look like? Well, I'm proposing it because I had so many different Kansas librarians and teachers express a need for a low-cost solution for access to a large collection of age-appropriate ebooks. All titles can be selected by Kansas librarians. Now, if as a group you decide, you know, we really need a hand finding the titles, at Mackin, we can absolutely put together some suggested lists that you can go in and modify. But I really think as you talk with your other librarians and you talk about with your peers, I really think you're going to want Kansas librarians to have their hands in and on the titles that are selected. Just remember, there are not going to be any minimum fees or yearly commitment fees other than what you subscribe to. So as I mentioned before, there's an app for every single device. If you have Chromebooks, if you are using iPads, if you're using Mac or Windows products, all of those tools can work with Mac and VIA. So let's talk about how this could look, what this would look like. If high school A purchased 45 ebooks for $1,000, they'd get about it'd be about $990. They would have access to 45 ebooks if they just purchased it all by themselves, not in cooperation with any other school. So let's say high school A and 10 other high schools join together. They each are going to contribute about $1,000 toward a shared collection for a total of $11,000. Now they have 500 ebooks rather than just 45. We will work with you and recommend how many copies of each title you need. There are a couple publishers that require multiples of 5 books for every so many students, and we will, once again, we will come alongside you and help you manage that list. So each school would have access to 125 unique titles versus only 45. So another thing to know with a shared collection, publishers require that in a shared collection, they be single user titles. You can absolutely purchase multi-user titles to be used within your school building. But once again, that's a publisher requirement and it's something that we at Mackin don't have control over. So once again, scenario A, if they purchased 237 ebooks, it would cost them about $8,000. That librarian has given her students access to 237 resources. But if they join with other schools for just $2,500, they have access to over 2,370 resources. That shared collection gives you the ability to have access to so many more titles. So another thing that we are going to work with you on, we will work with you on the best practices for shared collections, how many copies of each title you need. We're going to let you know if a certain title has a lot of holes, and we're going to suggest that, okay, we think you might need to purchase some additional titles of this, additional copies of this particular title. So we're going to make sure that this kind of hold, I mean, I've been there. I think I was number 25 on 2 copies of oh heck, what was the title that was so popular last summer? Where the Crawdads Sing. Took me 6 months to get a hold of that title. So here's another way to look at it. With Mackin Via, year 1, you put in $1,000. Year 2, you put in $1,000. If you go with other shared collection solutions, if you had a bump in your budget road, you would lose everything you'd purchased before, and year 4, you'd only have $1,000. With Mackin Via, if you put in $1,000 one year, you put in $1,000 the next year, you put in $1,000 year 3, and year 4, you can't buy in that year, you don't lose anything that you've purchased in the past. So let's talk about some potential timelines. Schools would need to complete an intent to order based upon your school population sooner than later. Ideally, it'd be great if POs could be into Greenbush, and I'll talk about why we're going to partner with Greenbush here in a minute. It'd be great if we could have it by the end of August so that we can get titles, the title list completed. We know how much we have to spend on titles and so forth. So I think your title selection coordinators or committees would start to develop lists as soon as we think we have a group that's good to go. We will help you with the number of copies you need based upon the number of participants. Once again, titles are all single user, but multi-users can be purchased at the school level. Collections would be released to the school's accounts about 3 to 4 weeks after the final invoice. Ideally, it'd be great if we could get everything loaded into your Mackin Via by the 1st of October. In subsequent years, in going out, we can move that calendar up, but given the time of year and how we're going, I think October 1st is probably a go-to date. You will own any perpetually licensed titles forever, regardless if there's no purchase the following year. Your shared titles, we will put those into your own Mackin Via school collections. We'll take care of pushing those titles in for you, and we will send you the MARC records. So here's the pricing that I would suggest, and this is based upon a pricing model that the CLC Consortium, the Connected Library Consortium in Pennsylvania and New Jersey has used, and it's worked really well for them. So just a little bit of background, that Pennsylvania Consortium started out much like this Kansas Consortium. They started 4 years ago. 2 years ago, they joined with New Jersey. They do it cooperatively. If you were an elementary school with less than 250 students, you would have paid 200, and you've been a participant for the last 4 years, you would have so far put in $1,000, 250 each year. Next year, that group, now granted, they have a larger population than we do, but they're going to have access to over $200,000 in ebooks for a $1,000 commitment over the 4 years. I think that's amazing. So this would be the pricing model, and it basically ends up to be about $1 or so per student. We've also put together a professional package, and I can send you a link to that list if your district would be interested in those titles as well. So here you can kind of get a feel for what it would cost your building per school. And this is what I'm proposing. We can have a conversation. This can be modified as well. So once again, no hosting fees. You are not going to lose access to any perpetually licensed titles. We will provide free training at the district or school level. I'd love to do it in person, but I have a feeling it's going to be virtual. If you have any ebooks from other vendors, Capstone Interactives, Follett ebooks, we will migrate those in for you free of charge. We can even take Overdrive ebooks and move them in. Students may need to re-authenticate into that title if you don't have the same kind of authentication protocol with that particular vendor, but we play well with everybody. We will happily migrate those for you free of charge. And we talked about how teachers can group those digital resources or assign them. We also work wonderfully with management systems like Google Classroom, Canvas, and Schoology. You can take that group and you can link it to your Google Classroom. Same thing with assignments. They get their assignment code, they log in, and they're logged into the title that you want those students to work with. In Canvas and Schoology, it's easy to add Macavia ebooks to a Canvas class or a Schoology class. And because we are partnering with Greenbush, anything print that you would buy from Mackin, you get an additional 8% discount through Greenbush. Not to mention the fact that all print comes from Mackin fully processed at no additional charge. Free mark records too. Also, anything digital is going to be an additional 7% discount. So we've got some great discounts because of a cooperative purchasing contract that Mackin is a part of, and Greenbush in the state of Kansas administers that contract. So this is the example of the Connected Library Consortium. I'm going to be sharing this presentation with all of you. So this just takes you out to their website, and we can create a similar kind of website. They have coordinators for those grade level bands. This professional collection is listed right here. I think it's a good list of titles. I think these are titles that your districts will most likely be using in some way or another at some point in time. And you can also see how their ordering process works. Because they've been working on these lists for a while. Let's say we were a school that hadn't previously been a part of the consortium. I could go back in and buy a previous year's list for the same price that I'm buying this year's list. And I can go in and I can see a PDF with all of those titles. Now, because we've worked in the past Greenbush we started a consortium with Greenbush a couple of years ago, and just a little bit of background, they were using a product called Snap to give all of their schools single sign-on access to things like the Tumble products and NBC Learn. Well, Snap was expensive, so they went with Mac and Via because the platform is free of charge. And because they had saved money, they purchased some shared collections over the last 3 years. Well, they are not continuing with that purchase because NBC Learn, for a variety of reasons. NBC Learn is no longer, they've shuttered their doors. But they have a collection of over 600 titles. It is a K-12 collection. But for any Kansas library that signs up to the shared collection this first year as an early adopter bonus, you're going to have access to that entire Greenbush shared collection in addition to anything we purchased this year. So it's a fabulous added bonus. So if you're interested in being part of a title selection committee or participating in the shared collection, I'd love it if you would contact me. I'm going to be putting together a Google form that's basically, that serves as a letter of intent. So if you go through that Google form and say, I have 500 students, this is the package, this is the level that I want to come in at, Greenbush will invoice you, or they'll send you a quote. If your district needs a quote to create a PO, Greenbush will create that quote and send it to you. Some districts require quotes and some districts don't. So it's dependent upon what you need. If I could ask you, if everybody could unmute. Now we have consortia that work off of the pricing model that I just showed you. We also have consortia that work on a per student cost. And it's, I'm not gonna, I think you as a group, or as we expand this group, you can absolutely decide, yep, that pricing model looks great. It's easy for me to explain it to my administrator. We can do $1 per student kind of scenario as well. So it's, what do you think? Do you think that pricing model, I think it looks pretty affordable. Or we can go with $1 per student kind of setup. Which do you think would be most appealing to a greater number of school libraries?
I have about 550 students, so of course that's more appealing, $550, but I'm happy with the $750 as well. So
I only have 150 students.
Okay.
Our four elementaries typically set right at 275-ish. There's a little variance, but so again, the per student would be more.
You think that'd be more appealing?
I think so.
If we put it out to our administrators as per student, it sounds to me like we're just paying for the service, that they'll take it that way, instead of using money to buy ebooks to put in our, database of books that we're all buying. I think that could be a little confusing to them.
Well, keep in mind too, and I know budgets are tight, and library budgets are variable in any state. Just keep in mind, the more you put into that fishbowl of funds available for your grade level band, the more ebooks we can purchase. So, I think you want a robust collection to get kids engaged. One thing that I often hear is, oh, my kids don't use ebooks. When I first started using ebooks, I purchased ebooks because I had that handful of students that used ebooks. They would, use them when they were doing a family trip. They just liked ebooks. Maybe they had a new Kindle or something that they'd gotten for Christmas. So just like I purchased those skateboard books for those kids that love to skateboard, I purchased ebooks for those kids that liked ebooks. The more ebooks I purchased, the more I found I just needed to promote them. I put up QR codes around my library. Now, I wasn't in a blended learning situation like what we're looking at, but there are some great ways to really promote ebooks. If we're looking at the potential of remote learning or a blended learning kind of format, I found that my classroom teachers relied on me to identify nonfiction ebooks that they could use for instruction. We purchased, the middle school purchased multi-user titles for their ancient civilizations. Now that wasn't part of our shared collection. We bought those at the individual school level. I don't know about y'all, but Diary of a Wimpy Kid, I could not keep on the shelf. And I had 2 schools and they were both around 300 kids per school. But I ended up having to repurchase at least 1 copy a year because it fell apart. You can purchase Diary of a Wimpy Kid. It's a 1-year subscription, so you have to repurchase it every year, but it's multi-user for $12.82. Well, that's about what you pay to buy it anyway as a hardcover. You can buy it as a perpetual single user, same price. So there's just such a wide variety of how you can purchase ebooks. I purchased a number of either the Julia Cook series or Howard B. Wigglebottom for SEL lessons. My middle school purchased picture books for SEL lessons for the middle school. The high school purchased picture books to teach theme or to introduce different kinds of concepts at the high school level. So there's just a variety of different ways to look at the list that you create and engage students with ebooks. And so once I got my classroom teachers on board about how they could use ebooks, once again, academic vocabulary, what reading strategy are your students working on? Let's have them highlight, annotate, save it to the Google Drive and share it with the teacher. There's all kinds of different ways. We did book clubs with ebooks. I had a teacher who used A Long Walk to Water with one of her small groups. Love that book. It's not available as a multi-user. We bought 10 copies. I think they were like around $7 a copy. And she would create an assignment. She would assign that to students. She put the instructions in. It was a higher level reading group. They went at their own pace. They would answer the questions that she had in those instructions. And like I said, pulling that classroom teacher in alongside, this is how we can pull ebooks into your instruction. We all have that one teacher, don't we? That would be a little techie. That would be like, sign me up. You just need one. You just need that one teacher to collaborate with, and they're like, sign me up. So what questions do y'all have so far?
Sarah, I'm wondering about a couple things, or at least one thing. I think the price is reasonable, even at my level, at the $500, for the ease of the single sign-on to all of the databases and anything I want to pull in. But my question is, as elementary person, and I'm seeing the representative here. So how does this consortium work if it's, is it split into secondary and elementary? Or because if there's 100 high school and middle schools that sign in and there's 10 elementaries, then
So
the collection.
that's when you need to become an evangelist. But I'll tell you though, the Hayesville librarians, for the most part, would sign up for this shared collection in a heartbeat. Do you know Shelley Davis?
Yes.
Contact Shelley Davis and ask her about her experience with Mac and Via. She uses Mac and Via a ton, and they love it. I've got instructions for connecting Mac and Via ebooks to Seesaw. If your building is using Seesaw with its K2 kiddos.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, the only way shared collections become robust is if we have a lot of people join in. So we will have, I would suggest a K5 band. So we have a K5 list, a K5 group, a middle school, which I know we have all kinds of configurations of schools in Kansas, but I would have a K5, a 6-8, and a 9-12. I think that maturity wise, I think 6, 7, 8 books.
Yep, I agree.
Better with 6, 7, 8 than.
And you
with
can
it.
purchase the individual ones for
Mhm.
your library if you find that you have users that,
Yeah, exactly.
and then those just don't show up on other people's in the shared collection.
Right. So if you, Deb, purchase the K5 list, we're going to push that K5 list into your Mac and Via.
Mhm.
So somebody has to purchase that list. So you wouldn't see the 6-8 titles or the 9-12. So let's say K5, let's say we're going to average, because elementary schools are not as large as high schools, right?
Right.
So let's say we have, and they usually tend to run, anywhere from 200 to, well, we have 150 up to, 500. So let's just say on average, we're going to have, if we blend those together, we're going to average about 300 per school. I think we need at least 15 schools. Even if we have 10, $3,000 is nothing to sneeze at. So if we have 15 schools, then we're going to have 15 times, we're going to have $4,500 in our shared collection this year. Okay. Think about it next year, because you're going to have friends that hear about it. So next year, we're probably going to have 20 elementary schools. And then you're going to have 4,500 plus 6,000 if you've been in since the beginning of the year. So now you have in 2 years' time, you have over $10,000 in ebooks. So the first year for any shared collection can sometimes be slender. We're trying to plump that up by also giving all first year members access to that Greenbush collection that's out there. Let me pull up that Greenbush collection for you. Change my site. So you can see it recognizes me when I log in. I don't have a backpack here because at Greenbush, I'm an administrator. So this shows me as an administrator, and here's my administrator link. So within here in the ebooks, there's over 600 titles. this is a K-12 list. So when we push this, I'm thinking of you, Deb, in particular, when we push this into your particular Mac and VIA, I will show you how to modify this list so you're only seeing those titles that are appropriate for your patrons. It's really, really easy to do.
Got it.
Yeah. So I think the fact that we can provide that bonus, for lack of a better word, for those early adopters is a plus.
Sarah, I have a question about the Greenbush. I think my middle school is a member because of the Tumble Books. I don't think the other middle school in Hayesville is a member. So do we have to be a member of the Greenbush Consortium to
Oh, no.
participate? Okay.
No. So you don't have to be within the Greenbush area for their ESC area, because Greenbush administers that cooperative purchasing contract for the entire state.
Okay.
So Greenbush is going to handle the billing for us. So it kind of makes things from a billing perspective a little bit easier. Anybody, whether you're a member, whether you've been part of that Greenbush ITS consortium, whether or not you are, anybody can have a free Mac and VIA, because Mac and VIA is free. Don't tell my boss I told you this. I have schools that use Mac and VIA as a placeholder for all of those links, those web resources, those OERs. They use it to curate that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's so easy. It is seriously 4 clicks to add the Kansas State Library to your databases and make it easy for students to access. So adding links, it's a snap. And I'll provide training for all of you on the administrative side. I will happily, I've been into Freeman. I trained her entire staff. Because we've got schools in Kansas without school librarians, I go in and I train their entire staff. So.
Thank you.
You bet. Any other questions?
Can you clarify what is a perpetual title?
You bet. So I'm going to take you to Mackin.com. If you don't already have a Mackin.com account, I would encourage you to sign up. So it's at Mackin.com, and you'll see this login button here. And if you don't have a Mackin.com account, click right here on Create an Account. So ebooks can be distributed in a number of ways. And we don't decide that, publishers do. So an ebook can be perpetual or subscription. Perpetual means you own it forever. Subscription means it's a period of time. So subscriptions can be 1 year, 2 year, or 3 years. There are a couple of publishers out there that also do a metered checkout, which means you have it for 26 or 52 checkouts. It's a pain in the neck, but sometimes those more popular titles are distributed in that fashion. So keep in mind, perpetual or subscription. And then underneath that heading, they can be single user or multi-user. So you can have a single user perpetual, you can have a multi-user perpetual. You can have a single user subscription, multi-user subscription. Probably the biggest conversation that I had with librarians and classroom teachers during our COVID spring was that of access. You have ELA teachers that are going to teach this particular book. I need X number of titles of, what's one of them? Great Gatsby. So let's look up Great Gatsby here. Okay, let's go to Great Gatsby. Oh, I'm in Mac and title list, that's why. Oops. So if I come into Great Gatsby and I say I'm looking for Mac and Via ebooks, I want to make sure that it is the fiction. Okay, so here we go. This one is no longer available. So let's go down and we're going to modify it to those that are available. So this Great Gatsby single user perpetual, that's not bad. It's $7.99. This Spanish is $20, 3-year subscription, $30, 1-year subscription. These are single user. So within here, the price is all over the place. I had a librarian ask me for The Outsiders. So once again, I'm going to come in here. I'm looking for those that are available. And I want S.E. Hinton. Here we go. 2-year single user subscription is $25. Well, that if you want it for an entire grade level, that's going to get pretty expensive. So when those kinds of things come up, my question is, what standards are you teaching? And why do you like it? At Mackin, we've got a group of librarians and classroom specialists that will help you find alternatives to something that's just not cost effective. This is a great time in our school history to be able to take a look at what has been our canon, what have we regularly used, and what might be a good alternative that's either more current, more relevant, or culturally responsive. So we will work with you on finding those titles for your school and even adding those to our shared collection. So once again, multi-users at the school level, single users can go into the shared collection. Great question. Any other questions? I was reading on something the other day about using A Long Way Down as an alternative to the Christmas Carol. It's like, huh, I can see that. And 2, in the Greenbush collection, we added as many of the William Allen Whites as were available and reasonable. The Pennsylvania shared collection are all perpetual titles. They don't have any subscriptions in that list because they wanted to make sure that anything that was ever purchased was always available. I think that would be something to talk about. Honestly, I think it would behoove the group to be open to subscription titles, especially where award winners are concerned or your nominees for William Allen Whites, because oftentimes those might be a subscription title. Ghost Boys, perfect example. As a title, because it's newer, publishers have they're proud of it. It's got a $45 price tag on that ebook, and it's a single user subscription. 2-year subscription, $45. Well, you're going to need extra titles of that in your library because it's part of that nominee list. So you've probably purchased copies for print, or you're going to. maybe having an extra couple of ebooks, maybe you purchase one and the consortium buys a couple. We'll always let you know 90 days out before a subscription expires. But I think it's something, it's going to be a discussion. It's not something that I would ever tell you what you want. I think as a consortium, you need to discuss as a group, what do we want? What would be best for our staff and students in our budgets?
I want to make sure I understand. I know you said this, but so let's say I'm able to buy in this year, but I'm not able next year, but the consortium continues. So I have access this year, I don't next year, but then I'm able to find the funds to come back the next year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then I have access to what I had the first year.
Yes.
And the third year.
Correct.
Right? Okay.
And as the consortium moves forward over years, I would suggest doing the same thing that Pennsylvania does. So you have year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, as an example, Kim. So you've purchased year 1.
Mm-hmm.
You were not able to purchase year 2.
Mm-hmm.
And you're able to hop back in year 3. During year 2, you still have access to what you purchased year 1. It never goes away.
Okay.
You come back in year 3, and maybe your PTO gives you a bit of a grant. You can go back and buy the previous year's list. Because if let's say we use that pricing model that we had set up before, and you're at that $250 spot or the $500 spot. So you can buy last year's list for $500.
Okay.
And it's quite possible in that it's the second year we had more people sign up, so it's a bigger list.
Okay.
You know, that's the idea. Each year, the more people you get to come into the consortium, the more money that grade level band has to spend on books.
Okay. Thank you.
So somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't tomorrow the day where somebody on KASL has set up just an open Zoom meeting for Kansas librarians?
Yeah, Amanda Harrison.
Mm-hmm.
So this could be, I would imagine ebooks will automatically be a topic for discussion during that open time. So Kim or I or some one of the other people here that aren't nodding but might be going to that anyway.
I'll be there.
Bring this up. Okay.
I do believe what I'll do is go ahead and I'm going to have this recording, and I can easily share the recording to KASL. I'm a librarian at heart, and Mackin is what I do, but it's always, I never want to be that salesperson, but I also want you to be aware of what Mackin can do, because I'm of that age do you remember the commercial? Avis, we're number 2, we try harder. That's me. So, you know, and I have a lot of mileage between Nebraska and Kansas. I haven't met everybody just because of, you know, geography. If you need a recommendation on a good audiobook, I'm your girl. At least I used to be. I mean, since March, my audiobook endeavors have really been reduced, but I just want you to know what's available. Nobody has to do this. I just think the time is right. Mm-hmm. And I just think it'd be, when I hear of the need, I have had so many librarians say, well, what would it cost? Well, it costs whatever you're willing to spend, basically. But the advantage is what you purchase never goes away. So I think when you all come together, and librarians are known for collaborating and working together and working with others, I just think the time is right.
Well, whether I buy the product or not, Sarah, in the last hour, you have really impressed me. So
well, thank you.
Kudos. Thank you.
Well, and two, if, you know, God willing and the creek don't rise, I really hope kids are back in school with hands-on print. I don't know if we'll ever be fully, nobody knows. But you know, we're here for your print needs too. I mean, Mackin was my go-to. The customer service was amazing. I just loved getting everything fully processed. And the marks are done by cataloging librarians. I just, you know, I don't know about you all, but my children knew how to put Mylar wrap on a book jacket. And when Mackin started doing that for me, I was all over that. It was great. So, any other questions? So you all have my email address. It's Sarah, S-A-R-A, no H, I'm H-less, .Mitchell at mackin.com. When we're done, if you have any questions, shoot me an email. We can absolutely meet individually. I'm going to save this recording and I'm going to send that link to on the KASL listserv. And I know there's a number of people that maybe aren't on the listserv or perhaps aren't members of their organization, which I'm always, you've got to be a member of your organization just for support and advocacy. Advocacy at the state level is huge. But share it with others, and we can only be as robust as how many people join our team. So let me know what you think. All right, thanks.
Sarah, one more question.
Yes.
When can we get a quote, or do we email for you to request a quote? How do you want us to handle that?
So
Letter
actually
of intent.
earlier today, I was just working on my Google form, and I need to have it approved by my Mackin team and also approved by Greenbush. But as soon as I have that, we can send it out. But like I said, Nancy, we need a lot of people to come together.
Okay.
So the more people we have to come together, the more robust our collection will be. But Nancy, even if you only had one other middle school, two of you for $500 could buy $1,000 worth of books. You know, it might start small. I don't think it's going to start that small. I think we have the ability to really ramp it up. So I think if nothing else, we'll do the same kind of presentation at the KLA conference, even though it's going to be virtual. And so that people at least know for next year, we're going to have an end date. Everything, all your letters of intent have to be in, we have to have a PO by X and such date. And I think that date needs to be August 30th. What do you guys think?
Sounds good.
Okay, you think that's doable? God bless you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I'll leave that there. All right, thanks everybody. You have a great rest of your day. And I think I might see some of you tomorrow, huh?
Yes.
Awesome, awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You
Thank
bet.
you.
Bye, Al.